Hello, hi, and welcome to Unit 3 of Cloneshouse Nigeria's online result-based monitoring and evaluation course. So, Unit 1 had introduction to the interface and to the organization and also the online platform. Unit 2, we discussed monitoring and evaluation, its differences, traditional monitoring and evaluation versus result-based monitoring and evaluation. So we will be moving to something much more different and hands-on, which is the causal pathway, which most of us know as theory of change. So in this class, our lesson objective is to be able for you participants to explain to others the importance of theory of change. Also important to you as a participant is to identify different ways of developing causal pathways, and also for you to be able to plan and design a causal pathway for your program. No matter what program you're working on, you should be able to develop we call it a pathway to success actually. So that's why we refer to it as a causal pathway. So maybe you want to refer to it as also a roadmap, something like that. A roadmap to success might be it. So in this unit, we're going to discuss what exactly causal pathway is, or the theory of change, the use of it, and also try and use it to explain the link between program planning and theory of change itself. Then we'll look at the different components of a theory of change, what you're supposed to look at. Then we'll look at some examples of theory of change. And lastly, we would work on one of our case studies that is meant for this course as well. Do not forget, if you have comments, questions, suggestions while you have seen this video, it's important that you make your comments on the platform, the Google Classroom, so you can actually make your comments on that platform. So what are causal pathways? In different literatures has different way of informing you what a causal pathway is. So whether it's called a framework, a program logic, an intervention logic, an outcome hierarchy, result change, theory of change, program theory. What I found out that is that all these are interconnected. So Unit 4 will discuss result change. So you're actually seeing result change there. So I find this actually interconnected into one another. Logical frameworks, some people will say M&E frameworks, all those are actually interconnected, but I think it's important to understand the fundamentals around this and why we're actually doing this. So it was Carol Weiss in 1995. She was the one that said this is a theory of change. Actually, it's a theory of how and why, with whom and under which circumstances and initiatives work. So in this course this unit will be focusing on it as theory of change. So when they ask you, okay, so how are you going to reduce maternal mortality, for example, or how are you going to increase the livelihoods of people of farmers that are living in Kakuri, for example? That's that type of question. So your answer is that theory, how and why your initiative would actually work. So and I think what is most useful here is that this theory of change is actually constructed before you start the program. So if you say you want to improve the livelihoods of farmers in Kakuri, for example, you would have drawn your theory of change. So, for example, um, you might want to say, if you're being asked, you might want to say, oh, how do I improve their livelihoods? Which means, how do I increase the income of farmers there? Oh, okay, one uh, is to give them improved seedlings. Two is to develop a toolkit for them. Three is to make sure, yes, I develop something that will make them to know what the weather is like. For my BO is to start an agric extension program to the farmers. So, I mean, all these are your own theories of how you think you're going to impact the lives of the farmers in Kakuri. So, same thing as, oh, okay, how do we improve the learning outcomes of children in in Anchor, Zamfara State, for example, which in essence means, oh, okay, how do we improve their reading and their numerical skills? So you could come up with several theories, um, changing of their curriculum, development of numerical toolkits, um, providing um, their teachers with useful methods of delivering pedagogically. So, I mean, you could think about so many things like your own theory of. So, and it is your own theory for that program. Um, Stein and Walters later said it's the articulation of the connection between activities and outcomes. Yes, so um, the examples I've been mentioning uh, before were activities. So how does it now lead to? So, for example, how does providing improved seedlings to farmers, how would it lead to them having improved income? So, how does that connect? What are the things that you do? So, all these are what we refer to as causal pathways. They are theories that you propose for a program, and they are always in a particular order, which we will see as we get along. Um, why is the theory of change actually useful? Yeah, I mean it's useful for program planning, just like we have said. I mean, during program planning, it is not just for you to think about, yes, we're going to have this program, but it's also important to think about all the steps, components that you need to take to achieve the outcome of that project. When starting a project, during monitoring, it's very important because it allows us to know what exactly we're going to measure. Um, Once we have a theory of change, then we can, because activities would also be included in your theory of change, so we know what to monitor. Also, it's important during evaluation because it will allow us to understand why your program is successful, and also why it wasn't successful. So because your own theory will be bound, it has a limit of what you can do. For instance, to improve the livelihoods of farmers in Kakuri, there is also a limit to what you can do to improve the outcomes of children in Anchor, for example. So it will allow us to understand why your program was successful or not. So, like we said, in planning and M&E, in planning, this is very important. Just to take us a step back to project management, where I mean, for every program, there's a problem. You need to first identify that problem or the needs. So, for example, like what I said in Kakuri, it is that farmers are not living, their livelihoods are not good. Uh, so how do we solve that problem? Um, the farming practices, they're not making much more money. Um, so you want to design a program that can meet that objective of um, them having improved livelihoods, which in turn is being implemented by several implementers, possibly. You now want to go to the M&E system. I mean, during planning, you only have specific objectives, but in the M&E system, you think about the theory of change, how it connects to your result chains, and how it goes to the indicators, which are now being informed by the data that is collected against the indicators, either quantitatively, qualitatively, or by mixed methods. So, I mean, there's this connection, and that's why you see people that are in planning, research, and statistics working together on M&E. So there's the planning part, which people that are in the planning department does, and they come up with several objectives for a particular problem that has been identified. But on the M&E system side is you being able to develop the theory of change and match it with indicators, which later on you can be informed by the data you collect, to report against the indicators that you have identified. So, I mean, this is a bit of what this connection looks like, and in the next few weeks, this is what we'll be working on around as well. So, what's included in the theory of change? It's important to, so you can, at times it's in this format. You will see several formats. So what's the problem you're trying to solve? It's important you understand, and this at times is called the needs assessment. You started with the problem. What exactly is the problem? So I I gave an example of, yes, children having low learning outcomes in Anchor, for example. So what exactly is the problem? Why is that? Um, so is it that there are no teachers? Is it that their teachers do not teach pedagogically? Is it that numerical skills are not being embraced at school and at home? So you need to think about what exactly is the problem. And so when you know what the needs are, you can now think about who are your audience. Who are the people you need to reach out to? Is it the teachers? Is it the parents? Is it the teachers? Um, how do you reach out to them? Is it by stakeholders meetings? Is it by training? Um, which now leads to steps you're supposed to take to bring about that change. So, yeah, which includes also, yes, maybe trainings, maybe rallies, maybe toolkits, um, trainings, different types of workshops for teachers. Then you now start thinking about the change. How will the teachers change? If it's directed at the pupils, will they change? Or what will change? Okay, the parents at home, what have you targeted them with? So, um, you now start measuring the effect at that point. Then afterwards, you now think about, yes, what are the benefits? There are wider benefits. Yes, are teachers now, have they improved their skills in terms of numerical, impacting children with numerical skills? Are the pupils now using their books in the library, especially in terms of improving numerical skills? Are parents at home now encouraging their wards to learn to use numerical skills? So, and I mean, perhaps this might now lead to maybe improve literacy among young children in Anchor. So that's just a simple narrative of components of a theory of change. If we go to the example that I gave about farmers in Kakuri, for example, if our objectives is to increase their income, which is sustainable livelihoods in terms of their income, if that's the goal of a project in agric that we want to execute in that part, yes, we need to first start in the theory of change, like looking at what the problem is, like exactly what is the problem that we're trying to solve. Is it that the farm is not yielding well? Instead of having 1,000 tons of grain, are they producing just 550 tons of grains? Is it that they are not following proper farm practices? How do you now think about those problems? So, who will be our audience? Are we targeting the farmers directly? Or are we targeting some agric extension workers, or are we going to be the one to provide the agric extension workers? So what will be our entry point to reaching this audience? Are we going to be speaking to the head of the Farmers Association in Kakuri? Are we going to the market to reach out to the farmers? Is it through the market? What steps are needed to bring about the change, which is the fourth step? So are we going to provide improved seedlings? Are we going to provide more funds or micro loans to these farmers? Are we going to provide improved seedlings? Are we going to make tractors available? Are we going to develop a manual? Are we going to do radio programs that will be discussing about improved livelihoods? Are we going to be developing other toolkits that these farmers can use? Are we going to provide access to markets? Maybe the problem is us. So, I mean, you think about so many ways, and we now think about the effect on it. So, are the farmers, how are they good? Are they going to change? Will they start using the improved seedlings we have provided for them? Are they now using the materials we provided for them to plant? Are they listening to the radio? Are they giving feedback on the radio program that we've designed? Then we'll now look at this part, which is that yes, are there now wider benefits? Have their income now increased? Are they now producing 5,000 tons of grains, which is what they are supposed to be producing before, which is actually the wider benefit of our program? Have their income increased? They now have access to that market, which at the long run, yes, might lead to a wider goal in the long term, which might be reducing poverty as a long-term goal, which is the goal one of the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, if I'm correct. So, I mean, you could think about your theory of change in this pattern, just like I've done with two examples. Like I said, I'm going to be working on one of the case studies, so we can work together on a particular case study on how to design your theory of change. But these are the components. This is what you need to think about when putting together your theory of change. And if you look down here, it has key assumptions. So you want to think about assumptions. Then it has the at each stage there are key assumptions. So assumptions could be that yes, maybe the farmers do not have access to markets, and you want to provide access to markets. An assumption could be that, oh, maybe these farmers do not know how to plant sustainably, or plant their seedling in a way that they can have more tons of grain per hectare. Maybe that's the assumption, and you want to teach them how to do that. So at every stage, there's an assumption for that. So you can add that. And the stakeholders, so which means at the long term, when they have the goals, who will be the stakeholders, who will be the partners, and all. Like we said, this particular course will not be talking about stakeholders analysis, so it's important. If anyone is interested in stakeholders analysis, you might want to go and register for the Strategic Project Management Development for Professionals course at cloneshouse.com. So, but I mean, if you have comments, questions, suggestions, you feel free to use the comments. So the comments on the classroom of this. So this is Unit 3. So you can actually comment here as well. That's very important. You can put your comments there, and we will respond. So this is several examples of a theory of change. So you could see World Vision International. It could be as robust as you can get as concerns theory of change. And you do not necessarily build this theory of change in one day. It takes lots of time, days, tweaking, adaptive, iterating your theory of change before you could get a perfect one. I'm not sure if we missed a content somewhere. So, but I mean, it's important to note that when you're putting together a theory of change, it's important that you have key stakeholders around that agrees, especially those that want to implement the program, or the beneficiaries as well. They need to inform you on the theory of change. So you could go through this example for World Vision International. You could see the change in, so they work with children, vulnerable children in several communities. They want to make sure children are influential protection actors amongst their peers in the family. Make sure faith communities are safe for children and are positively influencing families and all. So you could think about that if you see it from this part. So these are some of the activities they have identified: mobilize and raise awareness, strengthen reporting, referral mechanisms, support for vulnerable households, strengthen children's life skills and resilience, and address root cause. So this line means that they're saying when we do this, we will be breaking grounds. Like, for example, when we mobilize and raise awareness, when we strengthen reporting and referral mechanisms, there will be a change in knowledge about violence against children. There will be sustained community dialogue about child protection issues. There will be new options and alternatives to harmful practices. And local governments will have mandates and interest to prevent and respond to child protection issues. So, and they mention essential steps here. So it could be as huge as this, but I mean, this changes in the lifetime of a program. But note that this is being done at the beginning of a program. So I mean, some people, when they want to reflect on their work, they look back at their theory of change and make certain changes on it. This is Amnesty International, with an outcome of enabling and protecting the civic space and human rights. So they have different goals. So for each of the goal, it has its own theory of change. So you can see they're talking about what is the problem at this point, what's the impact of the problem, what will Amnesty International do. So collaborative monitoring, documentation and reporting, strengthen resilience and protection. They will facilitate learning exchange, skills development and support networks. There will be support for individuals at risk. There will be human rights education. So which then leads to, yes, greater legitimacy, significant enhancement of legal policy, which will lead to their goal of a world in which everyone knows and can claim their rights. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4 steps kind of theory of change, and they are for their goal. 2 as well, also the same thing. So this is a robust theory of change that they've tried putting together. In your classroom, it's important to state that so on this unit 3, there are other resources. Please try and go through them. There's a theory of change examples. There's a cursor pathway. Let's just take a look at this. Also almost the same thing. So this is an organization that works around tracing and repatriation of stolen assets. So you can see some of the activities is to bring new old actors into stolen asset recovery conversation, have workshops with government officials and private sector, also which would then, you can see the activities here: training modules, sharing resources, whistleblower protection fund, which they think this will now lead to accountability, actors having improved capacity to trace repatriate assets. The assumption here is that yes, maybe accountability actors do not are not well enlightened or do not have that capacity to trace and repatriate assets. Also, that this will improve collaboration. That's what it means at this stage. So, in essence, they're assuming that there are not much or many collaboration amongst actors. So, and it is that yes, as an outcome, this will lead to actors being responsible for tracing and repatriating stolen assets, which leads to, you could see the chain and all that. So that's also an example. There are several papers you can look at here as well. Just to go back to, so we're supposed to work on this case study. Let's develop a cursor pathway for the case study 5. I'm sure for your assignment on Unit 3, you would have almost the same thing. You're supposed to look at case studies and work on case studies. So there should be, let's look at the assignments. So this is Unit 3 assignments which you're supposed to work on. Let's go to the details. Yes, check the document titled Classwork Case Studies. There are 4 cases. So if you check here, there are actually cases for you. You can pick any one of the cases, either case 1, case 2, case 3, case 4, and you're supposed to create a cursor pathway. I will be working, of course, this does not have case 5 because it's for the class. So I wanted to just do an example of what it means to develop a courser pathway. So let's look at where we have classwork case studies. In here you will have the case 5. So this is case study 5. In Kiribati, every quarter, hundreds of households are affected by diarrhea. Children are mostly affected. So Waterways is a new NGO in Kiribati hoping to improve health outcomes of households in the village. Andrew Azan, the CEO and founder of Waterways, believes that children in communities have been affected by diarrhea several times, and Waterways should be able to find sustainable and long-lasting solutions to the problem in Kiribati. So they decided that as part of their program to mitigate diarrhea, a chlorine distribution program would be initiated. So we're supposed to construct a courser pathway for this. So the tool I'm going to use, I'm going to use Jamboard to create mine. You can, however you want to do it, you can create it in a Word document and use your arrows. Then you now upload, just like we've shown in how to use the Google Classroom. But I would, if you're interested, there's a tool called jamboard.google.com, which I might use for this. I find it interesting. Jamboard.google.com. I can just, because it has sticky notes, so I clicked on plus sign, then it has several sticky notes that I can use. I will use the green. Then, like we said, theory of change is important for it to be participatory. You have several stakeholders around. So what we're supposed to do is create is to first find what the problem is. This community have diarrhea, which in essence means that in terms of needs, they do not have access to clean water. That's what it means. And also that the prevalence for children is high. So children are really affected. That's in terms of needs. So what I'll do is my pathway on my Jamboard. You might use Word document if you want. I also do not have access to clean water. So I'm starting with the needs. And if you're wondering where I got that, remember here we have a template. What is the problem you're trying to solve? Is the first one. So I have that on my sticky notes. Then there's prevalence of diarrhea, especially for children, or you just say children do have diarrhea. So I can save that. I'm just going to do a simple one. So I have this as needs, right? Something in this format. I could move it a little bit here. So that's the needs. I could bring another sticky note. So this is the problem of Kiribati. I would name this title Kiribati call the pathway or theory of change, whatever one. So I have that. Then I'll so in essence, so this is the problem. What is waterways? What would waterways try and do in a community like this? So they've said yes, chlorine distribution. So I can start thinking about so many things I can do or that I need to do for this community. So chlorine distribution, if you do not know, so there are several ways chlorine is being packaged now that people put in their water to purify the water they drink. So call chlorine distribution. What else can I do? I can do radio programs on chlorine use. Hospital outreach on chlorine use. Yes, I mean, because so I'm just thinking of things to do in order this could be radio program on water use, whichever one I want to call it, doesn't matter. So chlorine distribution, radio programs on chlorine use, hospital outreach. I could think about so many things, other things that I can do. Also, family drama on water. I mean, start thinking about so many things, but I mean, it might not be that you have funds for some of it, so you can remove some. So it's just for you to have an idea of what you can do. And when you do all this, what does this mean? It means that yes, when I do this, if we go back to our template, we already know, not necessarily put in, but this, what steps are needed, then what now happens, what change, what immediate change do we think can happen. So with this, you can say one can think about, yes, I'll use another color, yes, maybe pink. Also now have chlorine that they can put in their water. That's what it means. Also learn how to use chlorine. There's a family drama on clean water. Household knows importance of drinking clean water. If the assumption is that they do not bother about that. So let me see, put this here. So I'm beginning to build my course pathway. Just because this means distribution. when all this happens, we are trying to say that um, now in terms of the change of behavior, we will not use. So just taking notes again. Remains clean water. It will also mean that household uses chlorine to purify their water. So, at this stage, if you're still watching this, so this is a segue assignment, which is not actually official. So, it would be nice if you can comment on this video about this. Look at this clean water. To purify the water. What would be the assumption for water is at that particular state? So, when the house climate for the water which they were not doing before, what it means is that the remains that will be okay, party. That's what this means. It also means the larger longer term. It also means that child mortality in Kiribati will be reduced. So we have a reduced child mortality. Boom. So cool. We just completed our course pathway. So I mean, you can think about this. This is in a smaller scope, but I mean, as we're putting it together, imagine that you have your stakeholders all together, and they are actually working on this. If you prefer to use the Jamboard, just like I've used mine, it is important to note that you can download this as a PDF just by putting your cursor on this three button. You can download as PDF. You can save frame as image. You can, I mean, I'm going to download it as a PDF. It's going to be here because the next phase of questions also comes from here as well. So let me download this as a PDF. Yep, so I have it as a PDF here. Let me open it. So you have this. You can actually just upload this to your assignment for the case study you're supposed to to work on. So like I said, just to there's also a worksheet in Unit 3 which you can also look at. It's an additional resource. I'm not sure. Okay, it's not here anyways, so not this one, but yes. So that's how you can So you can use the Jamboard just to create your cursor pathway. So we've just created our cursor pathway, and I hope this is useful for us. Just to quickly do a recap of our theory of change, which we call the cursor pathway. What it does is it measures your own theory, what you refer to as change, which necessarily different. It's different across borders, but I mean it's your own theory of change, and you have been able to say that yes, this is how and why my program might be successful. So, and it's something that is being articulated just before your program starts. And we said that yes, there are different literatures call it different names. It's important to note that it's important for program planning, for your projects, also for monitoring activities, and also evaluation as well. So the difference, you could look at different examples of theory of change, and we were able to create our own cursor pathway. And don't forget, I asked a question like, what's the assumption for household consuming more clean water at this stage, and household using chlorine to purify their water? So this is case study 5. This is the cursor pathway, and this is something that will also need you to work on. Lastly, what I can do, or what I will do, is to put a pen to this. I can now use the pen to draw my arrow. So this is actually the needs, and these are all our activities. The activities leads to this, and this leads to this as well. So, but I can do it in another way than chlorine distribution to houses. Does it mean that I also knows the importance of? No. I also learn how to, yes, this leads to this. Radio programs on chlorine use. I also learn, yes, this arrow actually goes there. Hospital outreach on chlorine use, yes, leads to this. Family drama on clean water, this actually leads to this. So, but I can bring my board and bring it here if you know what I'm trying to say. Then I believe that all this now leads to this. So I mean, this is a framework of how creating your theory of change looks like. In the next unit, we'll be looking at result chains. So converting this into what are results chains, how this is being placed on our result chains, and yes, so, and that will be it. Like I said, this is as an assignment, so that you might need to complete. It's very important. If you have visuals, please just put your comments inside the box, and we'll be happy. So that's on Unit 3. So if you have questions, suggestions on Unit 3, please do let us know. Hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you so much for your time, and have a wonderful week ahead.